For those of you whom I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Paul LeClerc, and it's my privilege to be the President and Chief Executive Officer of the best of all possible libraries, the New York Public Library, and to welcome you on behalf of our trustees and our staff to the Celeste Bartos Forum this afternoon for this incredibly important opening ceremony of Climate Week New York City. Yours will easily be, I think, one of the single most important meetings to take place in this room this year, both for the immense significance of the topics that will be discussed and for the exceptional quality of your speakers and panelists. All of us alive today have to be concerned about the welfare of our precious planet, and all enlightened people have to appreciate the immense importance and the timeliness of your work on the planet's behalf. With that, and with those few words, it's my pleasure to welcome Steve Howard, CEO of the Climate Group, to the podium to begin this afternoon's conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. LeClerc, for your great hospitality. It's great to be here again. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for sparing your time. We have a challenge ahead of us to rally ourselves for the clean revolution, and we've got a fantastic group of speakers to hopefully inspire and inform us to start the week off. One little housekeeping point: we'll be accepting large donations from anybody whose phone goes off during proceedings, so if you want to make a donation, please leave your phone on so that it can ring. Firstly, a few words of thanks. We're delighted to have, as our founding sponsor, Swiss Re. Swiss Re's been, I think, probably the earliest, or one of the earliest of all of the businesses in the world to show leadership on climate change. It's sustained over more than a decade now of leadership on the issue, and to have them as our founding sponsor for Climate Week NYC is great. No better company for us to work with. I'd also like to thank some of our other partners and sponsors: HSBC, the Dutch Postcode Lottery, the Global CSI Institute, Carbon Capture and Storage Institute. The acronym doesn't roll off the tongue, does it, Dale? The NASDAQ, Timberland, Bloomberg, and Edelman. And also our other partners: the United Nations, the UN Foundation, the City of New York, the Carbon Disclosure Project, the Tick 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 campaign, New York Academy of Science, COP16, and of course, New York Public Library. If we think about things now, in Copenhagen, we were partially pleased by progress, but left somewhat disappointed. We saw a triumph, perhaps, of competition over collaboration. But focusing on the competition, we now have many countries, many states, many regions, many cities, and many businesses competing for a share of the low-carbon economy. If we think of the scale of change that we're going through at this point in time, this is the century when we will build the world's cities. Every other century was kind of like practice. In 1950, there were 750 million people living in cities. Today, it's 3.5 billion. By mid-century, it'll be 6.3 billion. China alone will build all the buildings that are in the US in the next 20 years. 5.1 billion square feet of buildings. So an unprecedented rate of urbanization going on around the planet. Also in terms of economic growth, and we forget that when we're currently in a recession in some countries, but overall the sustained story of economic growth will continue. And if we think about it over the next 25 years or so, in terms of purchasing power parity, it doesn't matter whether it takes 30 or 20, go with me on this, actually we will triple the global economy in terms of purchasing power parity. So all of human history, we have one economy. The next 25 years, we put 2 more economies alongside that, and we have to provide for the people. At the same time, we need to reduce carbon emissions into the atmosphere by more than half by mid-century. Unprecedented growth, reduce carbon emissions by more than half. That means that all growth must be close to zero carbon growth. But that's now possible. What sounded like a tall order a few years ago now looks possible, but we need our very best efforts to do it. It's about financing this transformation. If we look at some of the most optimistic figures on this, last year in Europe, 62% of new energy, of new power generation, came from renewable energy. Alternative energy is now mainstream energy, 62% in Europe. Globally, it was 47%, so almost half of all new power generation came from renewables. That is a very promising sign. But really, we know that we need to increase the pace on this issue. HSBC did a report recently, and they suggested that the low-carbon economy will triple to $2.2 trillion by mid-century. Not by mid-century, sorry, by 2020. So 10 years, a tripling in 10 years. That's fantastic growth. There's money to be made. You know, as we've said before in the report, carbon down, profits up. This is where we will go. So the focus of this week is to come together and look at what can we do to actually bring governments and business together to form new types of public-private partnerships to focus on this issue and to use both policy and the best minds of business to actually finance this clean revolution.